Triangle of Sadness, the 2022 Palme d'Or winning film at the Cannes International Film Festival, is the latest film from Swedish director Ruben Östlund. How does Triangle of Sadness stack up against the rest of his filmography? I'm going to answer that question by ranking each of Östlund's films from F tier all the way up to S tier. But before I do, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's start things off with Ruben Östlund's first film, a film that I will not call by its name because it contains a racist word that has also been used to disparage people with Down syndrome. The title of Östlund's first film also foreshadows a discussion we're going to have later in this video, so this is going to be just all kinds of fun. Ah, god damn it. That said, much of Östlund's first film informs the stylistic approach he brings to his future films, namely that of a static camera and long takes. This film in particular appears to have been shot using DV tapes instead of film, so it immediately takes on a kind of Dogma 95 aesthetic. In terms of plot, well, there isn't much of one. The purpose of this film is to show you aspects of Swedish life that don't often appear in other Swedish films. There are recurring characters, most notably the guitar-playing youth who delivers the absolute best cover of When the Lion Sleeps ever. And some of these characters eventually do link together. For example, we are shown several instances of violence against bicycles by a gang of kids, and only later in the film do we discover that one of the other subjects had her bike stolen by that same gang. The woman and the gang never meet, there is no resolution, but they are connected to each other. As a curiosity for Östlund fans, I can see how this film would hold its appeal, especially from the perspective of seeing how his filmmaking style originated. However, when you think about making a film on the basis of showing people things that they had never seen before, you might want to ask yourself, why haven't they seen them before? It might be the case that those things aren't very interesting in the first place. For that reason, I'm going to put Ruben Östlund's first film into the D tier. Next up is Involuntary, Östlund's second film and a marked refinement of what he showed us in his first film. Stylistically, the camera is still static and the takes are still long, but the presentation of the narrative has evolved to resemble a more traditional structure. The focus is still broad, showing the stories of a number of different people who are not connected to each other, but each story adheres to cause and effect relationships and pushes towards resolution. In terms of Östlund's filmography, this is the first time where Östlund really starts to play with the theme of saving face, a theme that we will see reappear again and again throughout this video. For example, one of the people that the film focuses on is an actress who is riding a coach bus. While on the bus, she accidentally breaks something, and when the driver discovers what happened, he is determined to find out who is responsible. The actress does not speak up, instead allowing a child to take the blame. I think she largely did this because she was recognized by a fan very early on in the film, and so to admit that she was the one who did the bad thing, then she would potentially be taking a reputation hit. She is trying to save face. Each of the different storylines function in a similar way. You are shown someone who must save face, and then you are shown the consequences of those actions. And unlike Östlund's first film, each of these stories are interesting in their own right. As a stepping stone into Östlund's filmography, I think Involuntary works a lot better than Östlund's first film, so for that reason, I'm going to put it in the B tier. Play, Östlund's third film, takes the real-life story of a gang of black kids in Sweden who ran a little brother scam on white kids, essentially using bully tactics to get white kids to give up their cell phones and other valuable possessions. And yes, this is the film that I was referring to when I was talking about the racist name of Östlund's first film, but there are some other things to talk about first. Play continues Östlund's artistic evolution, leveling up the camera quality while keeping the takes long and the camera mostly static, although now it occasionally zooms. To be extremely charitable, I would say that this film is about exposing white Swedish people for allowing black kids to get away with harassment because the white people don't want to appear racist. This obviously relates back to Östlund's preoccupation with the theme of saving face. The film takes place almost entirely in public spaces like trams, parks, and shopping malls, so there's always the opportunity for intervention on behalf of the victimized white kids that never really materializes. There are also a number of instances where Östlund attempts to highlight subtle forms of racism that exist in Swedish society. Early in the film, we see a number of people reacting with surprise to something unseen, only for the camera to turn around and reveal a South American band. We also get a couple of pretty blatant examples of cultural appropriation, such as a white guy in dreads listening to Bob Marley music and a teenager dancing to Charles Charamba, a Zimbabwean gospel singer. Östlund's attempt to frame Sweden as a nation with racist tendencies would be all fine and good, except for the fact that he falls into the exact same trap when depicting the gang of black youths as entirely one-dimensional. They cheat, they lie, they are aggressive, they are predatory, they are unrepentant, and they are nothing else. We are shown no other aspects of their lives, nor are we given any real reason as to why they commit these crimes. And yes, I know, the events that take place in this film also took place in real life, and it would be very easy to dismiss any charges of racism, because how could this film be racist if it's just showing us what happened in real life. Except that's a stupid thing to say because it doesn't take into account the aforementioned presentation of the 5 black kids. It's very easy to think about how Östlund could have approached this material differently, particularly in terms of presenting the 5 antagonists as 3-dimensional characters instead of one-note villains. Why not also interrogate the government, or the police, or the aspects of Swedish society that make it difficult for immigrants to adapt to Swedish society? No, instead we get black kids are bad because they are black, and that's it. So, how do I put this film on a tier list? I would say that in almost every regard, Play represents a step forward for Östlund. However, I can't just dismiss his blatantly racist take on black kids. For that reason, I'm going to slot it down with Östlund's first film in the D tier. So where do we go from there? Why, to the top of a mountain, of course. Force Majeure, a film about a family slowly disintegrating after a husband abandons his wife and children during an avalanche, is Östlund's 4th film. Does that mean that the husband tries to save face during the film? You bet! And once again, we witness the development of Östlund's style over his previous 3 films. Yes, the static camera and long takes are still employed, although they are not as ubiquitous. There are a few examples of subtle zooms, and there's even a montage right at the beginning. Seriously, he has not done that before. There are also a few examples of conversations that employ a shot-reverse shot structure, so I think it's no surprise that Östlund started breaking into international markets with Force Majeure now that he was adopting a more conventional approach to structuring some of his scenes. Continuing with cinematography, I think this is the best looking Östlund film. Vanishing points that allow you to look past the characters as they are trying to look past their own faults give way to claustrophobic shots as the father is confronted with his own cowardice. It's a nice touch. And we also can't forget those lovely looking skiing shots. What is absolutely vital to this film are the performances of the 2 leads, Lisa Loven Kungsley as Ebba the wife, and Johannes Ba Kunnik as Thomas the husband. Ebba's shaken confession about Thomas's cowardice and Thomas's own acceptance over what he did are absolutely highlights and worth the price of admission alone. I think Force Majeure is a film that could get into the S tier, except there are some very sloppy looking matte shots that mess with the visual consistency of the film, so for that reason, I'm going to have to put Force Majeure into the A tier. Next up is The Square, Östlund's first film to compete in the main competition at the Cannes Film Festival, and his first film to win the Palme d'Or. For those of you that don't know, that's the big one. The Square focuses on Christian, the curator of a modern art museum in Stockholm, Sweden, who had his cell phone stolen while out and about in the city's downtown. What is it with Östlund and cell phone theft? Presuming that he has located the phone with the help of one of his employees, Christian delivers a threatening message through every door of an apartment building. He does eventually get his cell phone back, but there are some unforeseen consequences. Parallel to the main focus are Christian's responsibilities as the art museum's curator, and that's where characters played by Elizabeth Moss and Dominic West come in. Essentially, we get to see Christian's fall from grace, and along the way, Östlund delivers takedown after takedown of the wealthy class by highlighting privilege, hypocrisy, and acts of classism. Much like in the films that came before, Östlund loves for the camera to linger as static shots. But once again, we see the addition of more shot-reverse shot conversations and scenes that are built with multiple camera setups. The visual consistency of The Square is a step up from Force Majeure, but I don't think The Square matches the singular beauty of some of those aforementioned shots in Force Majeure. All in all, I think The Square is definitely worth your time, and although I think it sits a little bit below Force Majeure in Östlund's filmography, I still think that The Square is worthy of the A tier. Now we move on to Östlund's latest film, Triangle of Sadness, and if you thought The Square was a big old takedown of the wealthy class, then do I have news for you. Triangle of Sadness surpasses it in every conceivable way. I'm not going to go too in-depth on the plot because I know a lot of you will not have had the opportunity to see the film yet. But in basic terms, this film is about a group of wealthy people who are on a very expensive cruise when they are hit by a massive storm. And if you've seen the trailer, you know what happens when that storm hits. Like Östlund's other films, Triangle of Sadness is examining the theme of saving face, but in this case, I think he's even more interested in vertical power structures, how they are created, and how humans tend to cling to them. Östlund's outlook on hierarchy and his basic conclusion that humans will always form themselves into vertical power structures seems, on the surface, to be a little bit nihilistic. There are plenty of moments in the film where socialist and horizontal power structures are discussed, but ultimately they are undermined by the people who defend those horizontal power structures and the actions of people who never before benefited from a vertical power structure. We are left to believe that humans are incapable of creating equality for themselves. But based on what happens in the film, I feel that Östlund is not trying to say that people will always organize themselves into exploitive power structures, but rather he simply does not believe that when given the opportunity, people would take that chance to organize themselves into a more beneficial power structure, even if it was at their own peril to not do so. I don't agree with Östlund's observation, but given the state of the world, I also can't fault him for feeling that way. Beyond that, this film looks great, has some stellar performances, especially by the recently deceased Charlie Dean, and it's the most fun you are going to have watching a Ruben Östlund film. For all of the films I saw at TIFF, this was the one that made me laugh the most. However, it does fall down in a few spots. I love that this film used new noise by Refused as a needle drop. Gotta scream! but it was not that well executed and perhaps a little bit too on the nose. It's also easy to wonder if the film would have benefited by a little bit of trimming in the third act, but that is not the first time that someone has said that about a Ruben Östlund film, so take it for what you will. All in all, I think this is Ruben Östlund almost at his best, and for that, I'm going to slot Triangle of Sadness into the A tier. But tell me, what did you think of Triangle of Sadness? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you'd like to expand your film knowledge even more, check out one of my other tier lists.